Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, it says record from start, but I am going to check it again.
Mine does say stop recording, so I'm assuming it's recording.
Yeah, but it said that last time. Okay. Hello, everybody. Let's just see if we can get a Mexican wave going. Oh, yes, look, we've got a Mexican wave going. Don't you just love this? Are you all on? Are you on your side?
Mm-hmm. I've got questions open.
Okay, so welcome everybody. We are on the last session for APP 702, which is very exciting, isn't it? Hopefully you can all see your screen. So if you could just hands up or tell me that you can see the screen, the module page. Great. Okay, so I am going to cross my fingers, toes, and whatever, and make sure that, and hope that there is no problem with the recording of this afternoon's session. There is a problem with the recording for last week's session, so I've been unable to upload it. So I will hope that there is not a problem with this recording, and we'll be able to upload it as soon as the session finishes. So, but you've got the slides from last week up online, and you've also got a broadcast from Ruth, Professor Ruth Endicott, who did it a little bit before. So there is a resource and the stuff we covered. But what I thought might be useful, as last week's recording isn't available, is to just go over the submission of the assignment again on the program page, and maybe spend a little bit of time going over the assignment guidelines. And if there are any questions, any specific questions, then please type them up. I know some of you have got phone calls booked from 2:30. So from 2:30 we'll finish the broadcast and then we'll take individual phone calls. There are I'm available, and I know some of you have booked in with me from 2:30 onwards, but also Rona is available. So if you give her 5 minutes to get back to her office, then she'll be available on her office number from just after 2:30. I know some of you have contacted Rona direct, so I don't feel any ownership. Rona and I are doing this as a partnership. Emma, if you could just wave your hand at me. Oh no. Emma, are you? Oh yes, hello. If you want to phone Rona, as you've already started the conversation with her, then you can carry on with Rona after the end of the session. So can you put your phone number up on the DLE? I think your contact number's up there. If you put it on as a news alert or an announcement. All of you have got my phone number via emails and so on, but if you can't find it for whatever reason, I can put it up on the DLE as well. Okay, so I'm just right. Okay, so Emma sent a question. Can you see that question?
Oh, I was just going to put them in the email.
Okay.
Okay. We're to 2:40. I'll be back at 2:40.
Okay. Lovely. Okay, so just to repeat about submitting the assignment, just so that everybody's got the information, I'm going to switch my role up here to student role on the DLE. So this is the programme page that you see, the front page with all the information and all of the little animals. We then have the narrative review of the literature. That is the submission tile for your assignments. If you click that tile, you are presented with, oh, no, I don't want to do that, this page, which has your submission status, and it has some information about your assignment. It also has the grading criteria. So we'll just spend a little bit of time looking at the grading criteria. You have got 3,000 words to write. We do allow a 10% leeway, as it says in the module handbook. So you can write up to 3,300, or you won't be penalised if you only write 2,700. If you are low on word count or you are over the 3,300, 5% of your marks are taken away. So you're penalised by 5% if you go over the 10% hit leeway. So 3,000 words to write. You have got to write an introduction, and in the introduction, as it says here in the guidance, you've got to outline your chosen subject area with the aims of your search and give a clear context and rationale for the review and the appropriate focus of the literature review. This is only given 5 marks, so don't spend too much time or too many words on this section, but this is about you setting the scene for us. You're giving us some context. So remember that you are talking to people, or you're writing this assignment for people who aren't necessarily in your area of speciality. So if you have some really specific type words, phrases, or abbreviations that are commonly going to be used, then this is the time to give us some definition, but equally to give us the context. So what is happening in your particular clinical field, and what particular question are you asking, and why is it relevant now? The next section of your assignment is your search strategy. This is designated 10 marks, and this is where you give us an indication of the search terms that you used, the inclusion and exclusion criteria, the databases, and discuss how you chose your review content. So what was it that made you select the 14, 20, however many articles that you have decided to use for your review?
You're asking about the abstract.
An abstract is excluded from the word count, so it isn't included in the 3,500 words. If you wish to put an abstract in, that is absolutely fine. It is not essential for a narrative review. When we move forward into the next module for a research proposal, then I think it's a really useful thing to start doing. You don't have to do it. It isn't an assignment criteria for this assignment, but if you want to do one, then that's absolutely fine. But it doesn't come within your 3,000 words. And that's always the process, that the abstract sits outside your word count. So the search strategy, and this is where it might be useful to use an appendix if you want to put the search terms. It might be useful to put a Prisma diagram in the search section, and again refer to it, put it in the abstract and refer to it, i.e. you went to a Primo search and you got 40,000 articles, you refined it by excluded certain ones that were old, you excluded international, excluded articles that weren't empirical research, etc., and you refined it down. So there are techniques you can use in this section to protect your word count a little bit. If you wanted to put a text box, for example, in to denote some of the terms that you used, you don't need to give me a whole list of 40 terms. You can put them in a text box, and then that's excluded from your word count. So there are tools in which you can employ here present your material, but there needs to be a very clear idea of your search strategy. We then go into the review section, and as it says there, it's 60 marks, so 60% of the marks, therefore 60% of the word count, and it is obviously the bulk of the piece. This is where you're reviewing you're giving me a critical analysis of the research papers, concentrating on their strengths and weaknesses, and looking at it in terms of a thematic analysis. So you're looking for themes across the literature. I do not want a paper 1 said this, paper 2 said that, paper 3 said the other. That's not what I need at this level. At level 7, you shouldn't be giving me a description of the research itself. That's where you can, again, employ a literature summary and an appendix, and that's where you can present your papers one by one and give me an indication of their findings, so that you don't have to repeat yourself in the body of the text. Okay, so that's the narrative review section, and that is very much the bulk of the assignment. The next section is a little bit like a conclusion or an overall appraisal. So it's where you're drawing together what the body of knowledge has told you and discussing its significance, its importance, and how it might influence your practice in terms and possible research in the future, both locally and nationally. So having reviewed the body of literature, what is your overall appraisal of it? And this is, again, 15 marks in this section. Really important piece to tie together your themes and give us an overall appraisal of the literature. And this is where you may make some discussion about the methodological approaches that have been taken. Some of you have come to me with questions saying, you know, I'm finding lots and lots of quantitative research, but no qualitative, or vice versa. And this is where you may give a methodological appraisal to the research that you've been reviewing. The final section is your conclusion, which is for 10 marks. And this is where we would like to see a nicely worded research question or statement to conclude with. So having reviewed the literature, having reviewed this body of knowledge, what conclusions are you drawing? What research is still outstanding? What do you feel is a necessary research question to be undertaken? So that's the assignment guidelines. So they are there in the assessment tile, just to remind you, but they are also on a separate assessment guidelines section on the DLE, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. So you come to submit your assignment. Your assignment is all finished. Save it and give it a very clear title. So final submission APP 703. Please do not put your name on the file because you are being anonymously marked. Therefore, if you title the file, and I'm just picking a name out of the hat, Ella Field, I know it's Ella's assignment, so don't call it that. Call it APP 702 final draft, whatever, but make sure you submit the one you want to submit. So be very clear with your filing strategy on your computer. I don't know how many times, and Rona will back me up on this one, how many times students have submitted a previous draft with corrections or without corrections as their final assignment. You can submit right up until 3 o'clock on the 29th of January. You can submit prior to the weekend and then edit it if you want to go back to it. If you leave it till 14:59, you may come across a problem and then your submission may be down as late because it might take time to load. So give yourself plenty of time to upload your assignment, but please make sure that you submit it in a clear named fashion. Equally, please ensure that you submit it in a format that is compatible with the DLE. Now, that means it needs to be in a Word format or something that's compatible with Word, so you can submit it as a PDF if you wish, and that's a useful technique because it allows you to ensure that all your formatting is there, but equally that means that I will be able to read it, Rona will be able to read it. If we can't open the document, we can't mark it, and if we can't mark it, then you automatically get 0. There is no facility for me to come back to you after the 29th and say, I can't open this assignment, please submit it in an alternative format. The regulations, the academic regulations are very, very clear. I have to give you 0 and then you have to resubmit. If you resubmit, then you're capped at 50%. So please ensure that the assignment is in a compatible format. So we come to submit it. You click the Add Submission tab, and you're shown this page. You have a declaration which you need to click. If you don't click it, it won't allow you to submit it. You then drag and drop your file that you've named correctly into this box, either using the browse files or just simply by dragging it in from your desktop, and then you press Save Changes and the assignment is submitted. Almost instantly, your plymouth.ac.uk email address will receive a confirmation. It's an automated email which says an assignment has been submitted to the DLE. That is your proof of submission. If there is a problem and I for some reason, the DLE does what the DLE sometimes does, and I can't find that submission, or it's not recognised against your student number, then that email is proof that you submitted it. So please keep that submission proof email, file it in a box so that if I do have a problem, or Rona has a problem, then we can follow that up. But it's very unlikely, but it only allows you to submit one file, so you can't submit multiple files. So merge your document into one particular format. Okay, so all of this, the instructions are very clear, but if on Monday the 29th you are having issues, then just email and I will hopefully be able to, I will hopefully be able to get back to you. I am teaching all of that day, so I can't promise that it will be instantaneous, but if you do have any IT issues on that day, you can always go to the IT support desk, and they are available to assist. But it isn't complicated. I've done it myself, and you get, as I said, you get an automated email. Yeah, so myself or Rona will be around if there are any IT problems, but equally, it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so so that is the submission process, and then, as I said, you drag and drop your file into this box, save changes, and you get an automated email. So if I go back to the front page, I'm going to return to my normal role. So we've got our little animals. All of the information is still available. If we go to the Welcome and Module Information tab, there is the assignment guidelines there as a Word document that we've just had a look at. We've just gone over. They're exactly the same. There is a template there, a Word document, which is a submission front sheet, which you can use, which can be quite helpful. I'll just open it to show you.
I think it's a good idea, actually.
I think it's a good
It's
idea.
like a tick box exercise, just
Yeah.
to show it.
So what this assignment submission sheet does, it's just a simple Word document which will open at some point. Here we go. Pause for a dramatic effect. It's not that exciting.
Did you talk about using headings and subtitles? Good.
I haven't mentioned that specifically, but sorry, this is my computer's obviously going into. Goodness me. Right, here is the submission front sheet, which actually says APP 701. Sorry, that's a hangover from what the module used to be called. So I will edit that. There we go, APP 702. Submission site, so very clear. We are using anonymous marking, so leave the name bit blank. You've got your student registration number, and actually that is really, really important for me because sometimes there needs to be some tracking back of assignments. So if you could put your student number on there, that would be really useful. Module name, module code, assignment title, so narrative review. Tutor responsible for first marking is both myself and Rona, so put both our names there. And is this a resubmission? And not for all of you submitting this time, that will be no, this is a first submission. So check that you have used Harvard referencing system correctly. Now, at undergraduate level, we often have a section in the assignment brief with marks allocated to grammar and spelling. At master's level, we don't have that because I think I'll get a nod from, well, I know I'm going to get a nod from Rona. I will remove marks from every single section quite drastically if the assignment is not spelt correctly, is not grammatically and typographically correct. Because in this day and age with computers and spell check and so on, there is really no excuse for poor grammar and spelling, and if the Harvard referencing system isn't correct. Now on Primo and on the library website and the LibGuides and so on, there are multiple sites for you to use to assist you with your referencing if you're not using EndNote. So really, referencing is got to be absolutely correct, and I know Rona will be taking marks off if you haven't used the Harvard referencing system correctly.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing around the idea of this structure is making sure that your paragraphs A flow and B are either not too long or too short, because there are some who write in sort of 2 or 3 lines as a paragraph, and then others are a page and a half, so it needs to be somewhere in between that. It doesn't work if it's either too short or too long.
So really important to use, good grammar, good spelling, good typographical text, and to be referenced correctly. It says include an abstract, so if you have, you say yes. Only include material in the appendix that are referred to in the main text. Don't just bung stuff in the appendix because you think it might be useful. It needs to be referred to, it needs to have a significance, it needs to have a real rational reason for being there. And then you give me a word count which excludes the abstract, the referencing, and the appendix, so that you're there with a word count. Signed by student, a digital signature. This is anonymous marking, so again, you can leave that blank and just put your date there. So that's a set submission timesheet, submission sheet that you can use and edit appropriately. Let's save that. Close. So, as I said, there's submission timesheet, there's literature summary sheets that you might be using. A lot of this we did cover in session 1, so you can recap some of the assessment information we did in session 1. And there are the assignment guidelines again, which we've already discussed. And the module information booklet has also got some information about referencing and format and so on. But as Rona said, paragraphs are really important. If you want to use subheadings, then that's absolutely fine. And actually an assignment like this can benefit from subheadings. Sometimes assignments need to flow and need to be in one section, but in an assignment like this, I think subheadings can be very useful. So that's the submitting the assignment and any sort of recap on the assignment guidelines. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask openly, in which case I can unmute your microphone? Or I know there's been some questions being asked, which Rona is very kindly answering online. Anybody want to ask a question? So somebody asked a question about format and type. Yes, Arial. I don't absolutely, I'm not wedded to Arial, but it's the most...
No, I actually like Times Roman numeral, whatever it is, but Arial's fine. 12 point, 1.5 or double line spacing. Yes,
but absolutely 12 point, please, because my eyes don't respond to size 6.
No, I'll be my A14 actually.
You can always click and save it in a bigger format for those that are. Yes, unfortunately, Paul, there's been a problem with the recording of last week's session, but this week it's flashing at me that this session is being recorded. I've got a red dot, so I'm really hoping that this one will be all fine and uploaded. So we've gone over the assessment guidelines and the submission information so that it's going to be available online, and what was I going to say? And yeah, that will be uploaded. But you've got the slides from the ethics session. You've equally got the recording from Professor Endicott about ethics. Debbie, what I'm talking about is the program handbook. So if you haven't, you should have a program handbook which has got referencing information. Equally, there's referencing information in the library guides, which are all available online. Busy typing away answers to questions there. On your program page. So Debbie, what program are you registered on? Okay, so the MSc Contemporary Healthcare. So if I So you should have access to the MSc Contemporary Healthcare page, which looks like this, and the program handbook for, well, because the program has discontinued, we don't have a 17-18 handbook, but the program handbook for 16-17 is there when you registered. So you should have access to that program page. If you don't, then it might be worth reminding PDU that you're still registered on the MSc Contemporary Healthcare Health Genetics page, because you should have this information. But as a, I will send you the program handbook as a PDF once the email. Okay, great. Okay, I'll send you a PDF. Okay. Write myself that note so I don't forget. Any other general questions? Yeah, colourful essays are always very nice to read.
Yes and no. It's
Yes.
not written in yellow font or something.
Oh,
So,
I don't know if I'd be able to read yellow. I certainly wouldn't be able to read 43 yellow ones. Where have we gone? 7A, 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 7A. Do. Back to the programme page. Shall we have a look to see how many of you have filled in the module evaluation? 2 of you have submitted the module evaluation. 2, only 2. Can I name and shame some of you? It's anonymous, so I can't name any of you, but please could I ask you to fill in your module evaluation forms? It's really important for our development. There are lots of questions which are just tick box, which are absolutely fine, and they form part of my statistics for the module, but equally the qualitative information at the end, the free text boxes where you can type the things that were good, the things that you think we need more of, less of, that really helps with the development of the module. Rona and I have got to deliver this module again in April, so it's always useful to be able to respond to comments that you've made. So please, can I just ask you nicely to complete the module evaluation at the end of this session. Anybody got any specific questions about the assignment, or I would say that some of you have sent me sections, and I will respond to all of those emails over the next day or so. Anything submitted up until sort of Thursday will be reviewed before the Christmas break. That's the 14th, isn't it? So after the 14th, I possibly won't have a chance to respond to anything until after Christmas. I myself am moving house on Monday, the 18th. So if I can find my computer, I will respond to your emails, but I do go on leave after the 19th. So anything submitted after Thursday of this week won't be reviewed until after Christmas, I'm afraid. But anything sent this week up until Thursday, I will review before I shut down my computer and move house. And that's really much the same for Rona. If you want Rona's feedback, really your latest is Wednesday, because your last working day is Thursday, because she's got Friday off.
And I'm away. I'm actually away, so I won't be doing any work.
So yeah, happy to review and answer questions up until the end of this week, but after that it's going to be after Christmas. Oh, that's a really difficult question to answer, really, isn't it? How much should you have completed by now? It really rather depends on your workload moving forward. I mean, you've got until the 29th of January to submit. Really, after that, it's a personal choice. I have no idea about what your work and life commitments are between now and the end of January. Some people leave it all to the last minute. Some of you will have done loads and loads and loads of reading, but you won't have actually written anything yet. Some of you will have started to write and will have stuff for me to or Rona to review, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm your postgraduate learners, so I'm not going to dictate that by this time you should have written 1,000 words or whatever, because that would just be too arbitrary. So I really would have expected by now that you have spent some time reading around the research methodology and getting to grips with research, because for some of you it will be quite new and you won't have been doing much about research up until this point. So I'd certainly expect you to have done quite a significant amount of reading. Equally, obviously, I would very much expect you to have decided on your topic, collected your articles. You might be in that slightly messy stage where you've got lots of material, lots of notes, lots of thoughts going around. You haven't maybe worked out your themes yet, but I'd certainly have expected you to identify your topic and the articles that you have to review. Is that about fair, Rona?
That's fair. Debbie's asking about Thursday night, okay, for submitting something. That's down to you, really, because I won't be here.
Thursday's fine. I will be able to get to look at it on first thing Friday, but I will not pack my computer until that evening. Once it's gone in a packing box, then it might take me a month to find it. I'm joking. No, it won't, I promise. Well, yes, but for an awful lot of you, you will have only done undergraduate research assignments. There won't you won't have done any work in the research field at a postgraduate level. You may have done modules at a postgraduate level, especially clinical modules and pathway-specific modules at level 7 already. But this, for many of you, is the first piece of work at level 7 or the first research piece of work at level 7. So, you know, you've got to think about how much time it's going to take you to write this assignment. This assignment might not take you very long to write, but it will take you an awful long time to prepare for. As I said right at the beginning of the module, you've got to start reading, you've got to start reviewing articles right from the start of the module, because it's familiarising yourself with the language, the style, the terminology, the way research is written up, and that's how you can start to really get to grips with how you can critically analyse it. And it isn't until you start reading empirical primary research do you start to really get a feel for what's out there and what you've got to do. Yes, and on literature searches, you will get an awful lot of other stuff, for want of a better expression. You'll get empirical research, primary research, which is what we want you to review and critique. But the literature reviews and the commentary and the opinion are always very useful to fill in that body of knowledge. So to really explain the topic that you're exploring, and they will form part of your discussion and part of your reference list. So they're definitely going to be in your discussions, in your introduction and in your discussion section, and possibly in your conclusion. So they can be useful. This is very much an assignment that is very messy before it gets neat. Any other questions? So we will look at and review around 500 words, a couple of pages, up till the 22nd of January. After that, in that last week prior to submission, we can't review any material. Obviously, we can answer direct questions, but we can't review any material. Just as a sort of plea, really, there's no benefit to sending it to me and Rona. Pick one and go for it, really, because it's not helpful if you go to both of us. I will not be hurt at all if you all want to go to Rona, and equally I'm sure Rona won't be, because we'll mark them literally, because it's done anonymously and you have a participant number, we don't have a name. Literally, I take the top half and Rona takes the bottom half. There's no picking out which ones we want to mark. We don't do it that way. So there's no.
It's not even student numbers, is it?
It's not on student numbers. No, it's on participant numbers. So it's completely blind. I mean, sometimes we'll recognise the topics, and I know for some of you who work in critical care, I might recognise those. And genetics, I might recognise those because you're in very specialist fields. But you know, it is an anonymously marked assignment, and as I said, you know, we don't pick and choose which ones we want to mark. We just literally take the top half and the bottom half. And so, you know, if you've got if you've gone to Rona for feedback, then please don't come to me for feedback as well, because that's not really helpful. Yeah. Critiquing quantitative measures, I would advise against making any kind of critique of the statistical tool itself, because you're not statisticians, and more often than not, in fact, I would say categorically that a piece of quantitative work will have been had statistics or a statistician's involvement, and they choose the test. So if I was going to undertake a piece of quantitative research, I would go to a statistician and say, I want to prove that X equals Y. What statistical test should I employ? And that statistician would say, you need to use a chi-square test, or a probability value, or a so on. So I wouldn't necessarily endeavour to critique the specific quantitative measure. What I would do, though, is, and you will see this in many publications, quantitative publications, is that there isn't a clarity of the numbers that are presented and the discussion that's given. So can you see in the numbers where their discussion has come from? Because they'll present their findings, often in a graph or a table of some description, and then they'll do a discussion. Can you tie those two things together? Can you see where those conclusions have been drawn from? So it's about a critique of the overall paper rather than the minutiae of the statistical test itself. So hopefully that answers the question. So I don't necessarily want you to be evaluating a statistical tool, because there's no value in that for you. The value is in, can I understand what that statistical test is telling me in terms of the research findings?
You know, my views on things like that. No, I agree, and it's not really what we're looking for in this assignment, is it? It's an understanding of research design, study design.
So what I'm looking for much more is, does the research aim and the hypothesis follow that I am then the research aim and hypothesis follow, that the literature is then presented, the data is then collected in a specific way, and then the statistical test is employed, and then the discussion of findings. And as I'm reading through the article, I can see exactly what the researchers have done, what they've collected, what they've found, and they've presented it in a true and honest way. And you will, you know, that's what I'm asking you to critique in terms of the methodology of the article, not the finer points of quantitative research. You've also got to remember that both Rona and I are qualitative researchers. Although I have to say, I did have to do statistics for my first master's. I don't know, did no?
No, absolutely not.
I have it in a folder and it's quite close, it's quite sealed.
Never to be opened.
Never to be opened again.
Proof. Statistics. Well done.
I did an exam on this stuff.
Oh. I did some undergrad, but that's all. I remember using SPSS.
Input the data.
Yes, and I did it the wrong way around this time. I did get it.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, Rona and I just have a chat.
Right.
So I wonder, just as a show of hands, who's got snow? None of you have got snow. Oh yeah, some of you have got snow. Like proper over the top of the shoes snow, or just a little dusting?
Yes, good.
Proper,
Not see any down
no.
here. Okay. -2.
No snow? Oh, that's really cold.
Oh. -7.
Ooh. No snow in Scotland? That's terribly disappointing. -7? Where was -7?
Makes me shiver just thinking about it.
Oh, okay. Well, you should expect it up there. I'm rather disappointed that you don't have snow in Scotland, though.
That's the,
Is it?
it's in the west, isn't it?
Is it the
It's
west
winter,
coast?
isn't it?
Hmm.
There's -7, not -14.
No, that was in Wales. Yeah.
-14 last night.
Mm. Oh no.
That's attractive. Definitely.
I had the glamorous experience of going to Wolverhampton this weekend.
I'm going to Switzerland.
Oh, well, yeah, but there's meant to be snow in Switzerland. You expect snow in Switzerland. You should be in ski gear in Switzerland. I went to Wolverhampton. I know you're jealous because Wolverhampton is such a glamorous place, and I apologise to anybody that comes from Wolverhampton, but it isn't a particularly glamorous place, and there was lots of snow.
Yeah, they've actually got used to it, haven't they?
Mm. Okay, so I think that is the end of the questions. I will, obviously this session is being recorded, and I will upload it as soon as we're finished. Any questions, obviously via email, please don't hesitate to contact us, as we've said, up until the end of this week. Some of you have got phone tutorials now booked for this afternoon, and they started, I think, at about 2:30 for me, so we've got about half an hour before they start. And can I just ask you again to fill in your module evaluations when you have a moment? But otherwise, thank you very much for your attention, and I will hope to see you all in APP 703 in the future at some point. Some of
Is that April?
that starts, the next module starts again in April as well, but we run this again in April as well. So,
Oh, we're doing two together.
well, sort of crossing over a bit. So for some of you will be joining APP 703 in April, some of you will be doing APP 703 sometime in the future. So we'll look forward to meeting virtually again. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
And I will speak to some of you a bit later on. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Yes, you too. Thanks, Gemma.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you all too.